Hello everyone, welcome back. So in this tutorial, we will use Visual Studio Code itself to create a Spring Boot application. And let's start. Open Visual Studio Code. And the shortcut or the command for this one is Command-Shift-P. And it will open the command list that you can run all the commands. And these are the plugins that we have or I have installed. So I'm going to click Spring Initializr. Then it will be a Java project. So my company name will be, or main domain name will be XCARS.com. Remember that this is a reverse domain name. So if it was straight, it would be XCARS.com. So that's the reverse name. Or if I add a department or artifact ID for the package, it will be store.microsoft.com. There we go. If I reverse that, that will become .microsoft.store. So, and for more information, you can check Wikipedia or Google reverse domain name system, reverse DNS. Okay, and we will use small caps letters, not capitals, for creating the project. So the project name is ideas. There we go. And we will choose the latest version of Spring Boot 2.1.8, and in here are all the dependencies that we need. So let's start from DevTools, and we need web. So when you look for web, look for the one that says RESTful application MVC, and this is the one that we send request uses the Apache server that for RESTful API or servlet. Actually, the Spring Boot and Maven, when we use these, we use Apache server with servlet Java server. So let's do the web. There we go. And the other two we need is we definitely want to connect to a database because we will be creating tables and removing data from it. So we need JPA Hibernate, which is a Java persistent API. And the reason we call it API because we type Java code and it translates to SQL commands, and it creates table. When it interacts with the database, it interacts with the tables or database through SQL, but we type Java code. And the last one, we need a driver for MySQL server. You can also use Microsoft SQL Server or Postgres, whatever you want. All you gotta do is just type the database name. So we need a MySQL server. There we go. I choose all the 4 dependencies that we need for this project. Actually, so this one will be the skeleton for a RESTful Spring Boot application. To make it work with, to have a view and work with my view part, then we do need a template engine, which we will add it later. So let's have our server first running and working. So enter type. We choose where you want to save it. You can create a new folder. If you have already one, you can select that one. So let's create it there. And the project is now created. I'm going to open it in Visual Studio Code. Once you open it, it's going to try to download, synchronize all the repositories, dependencies. Remember that everything is downloaded, or most of the things are downloaded from start.spring.io. And even though we didn't see the page here, but it exactly goes to that link to download the packages we selected. Always remember, sometimes as a student, it's easy to make the mistake and run the application. And if I run it now, it's gonna fail. So let's open the terminal. There we go. It's inside the folder, but if it happens that you want to run a different terminal, you can just go to the destination wherever you have created, and then run it. So let's do cd. It is in desktop. Cd Spring Boot project. There we go. Clean the screen. Cd ideas. The other thing I would like to mention is when you say generate a folder, it generates a folder with all the packages. So if you want this folder to be in desktop, you can definitely just choose desktop, not inside a folder, because it will be desktop/ideas anyway. But at this stage, you can still move around because it's a whole package. It's not just one or two files. If you move it, it's not gonna work. It's not like that. You can move it. So there we go. ls, it shows lists all the files. And we can see POM XML. You always want to be in this page when you want to test your code. So the command to run this is Maven Spring Boot run. And it's gonna fail because we didn't give it any user in driver information to where to connect to a database. So there's no database, there's no embedded database, nothing. So the URL for database source is missing. Let's add that one. So you can, there are two ways you can get it. One of them is just by going to Spring Boot MySQL configuration for application properties. Click, and it gives you a whole extra information, all the necessary steps to take. But for us, we only need this part. Once you get this, add your local host name, the port number, and database, then save that. You can use it each time in the future. Remember, in application.property, in this file, you can add extra configuration when you want to override the default one. So if you want your application to behave differently, this is one of the part that in that properties you add the extra things, like including validations, extra validation, all those things, which will come in at the end of this series. So, and the only thing I would like to point out in this page is the auto update. So Hibernate, what it does, changes the database. If there's a table, that's fine. If not, if there's a table, it checks to update it. If there's not one, it creates it. Create is always creates, and but if you choose this one, restart is gonna drop. It will create a table, then drop it at the end of the session. So for us, we will keep the update, and let's add that setting over here. It will be in source, main, and resources. Remember, most of the codes when you're building the application will be under source. Main is Java, all the Java codes and sources, and here you can have the CSS, JavaScript, and template engine like JSP, or the other one, Temleaf. These are templating engine for Java, as we have something similar like Ninja for Flask in Django in Python. So let me show you a link. So that's Temleaf, and you can use either this one, but there are some differences in their syntax. So we will be using JSTL or JSP, which is also commonly used. And I have put these links into the text note there that I will share. But pretty much you need the tag library, the core, which will include all the basic operations for viewing template engine. And there is a good guide in here, so you can take a look at this link and get familiar with it. And depending on who you ask, like some people prefer using Temleaf and some would prefer using JSP. But I would like to use JSP for this tutorial. In the next one, I will make one for Temleaf. There isn't a lot of difference, but there are some basic syntax difference. That's it. So, but we will be using JSP in this one. And one of the reasons that we have JSP, like such a thing, mixing these codes and rendering it, so it's pretty much like server-based rendering. So why we have such a thing? When people needed to integrate Java with HTML, or they wanted to have like a Java web application, then they would need something like this. It would be like return h1 hello world slash h1. But as you can see, if you have so many tags and elements, then this code will get pretty long and it will be messy in mixing Java with HTML inside the strings. So to get rid of this problem, they came up with the idea of creating a template engine, and the two famous ones are JSP and Template, and there are a couple more. And you can take a look at their syntax, whichever you like. But the two famous ones are for enterprise users are JSP and Template. So let's come back. Let's make sure that we don't get too much far out of the topic. So we have created the application. It's before we can run this, we need to add a connection, a user and password connection to a database. So I have already copied in one of my files that's already in the clipboard. So I'm going to paste the same file here to make my life easy. That was the first line we talked about: create update, create drop. So I'll just keep it as update, and that will be the driver for the data source. So it's MySQL. If it is SQL Server, it will be different. And this is machine information, the local host name, and that's the port number and the password. The ports could be different. You can, whatever port the database have or you have chosen one, you will select that one. For this part, let's create a database because we want our own database. So I'm going to go to MySQL workbench, click home. So that's my connection here. If you use your own SQL Server, if you have just MySQL installed, that will be 3306 the port. It's localhost, so that's mine. And let's create a database first. So database is created. Use it. Let's refresh here. So now it is active. Once it creates, it's not active, which means like look at this database here. So when it shows dark bold color, it means that that one is active. If you run a command against a different database, it's gonna fail, but not like commands like drop database. So if you already have a database or it's corrupted, you did so many restart, it's always good to just drop and create another one, which we will face in the phase of creating relationship in the database. And as dev tools will keep restarting and it will keep modifying the table and it will kind of get crap and the application won't work well, so you have to drop it. But these are for practices. You never want to run a drop database on a production server, and you never want to drop a table that already has data. So it's just like in your PC practicing. So let's create it again. Create it, use active. Let's see, refresh. There we go. And from here, I'm going to copy this database name because I must have the same name, exact name to copy to connect to it. So that's our table. And this code is just sometimes MySQL Server after version 5 sometimes gives you an error of time zone. You would just want to add this one to avoid that. So the user and password, mine is root. And to show you that, double check. So that's my username, password. I can definitely change it anytime, but it's for tutorial purpose. You never want to put your exact username and password. You don't share it, because if someone has user password and the port number for this machine, it's easier to hack it. So for this part, for now, we are done with application.properties, but we need to come back to it to add some extra plugins or path to web framework. So let's run the Spring Boot Dash. I have installed this plugin or extension that it runs my application inside Visual Studio Code, but I do want to make sure that when I test this, my application works. So I'm going to put system out just say app is working. There we go, save. But this one is gonna run in terminal. I don't even have to open it because it's gonna open it. And it will run in debug console here. So let's run. Select. Okay. So it's green. That's a good sign. If it gives you red, that's gonna fail. And it did complain that it's better to add this driver because the old one is deprecated. No problem. I can copy that one and just put it here. Save. Let me stop this one. So it worked. It says application is working. But this time I'm going to run it in the terminal. Let's run the outside terminal. Ls, the same command. You want to make sure you're in a folder that says POM.xml source. These folders exist, especially POM.xml is the one you want to make sure you're there. All right, there you go. I'm sorry for that sip of coffee. Okay, here we go. App is working. That's fine. Let's check our browser. Type localhost port 8080. We can also change our port number. For now, we will keep it default, but I will show you how to do it. It's not that hard. Okay, so the application is running. It reacted. Before we go and do the model, for this tutorial, I would like to build the front and back ends at first step, and then we will go and build a full back end and the models, everything. So here's the important step for having a web page active and running. When you use SpringToolSuite, there are a lot of things automatically taken care of, and you have a user interface that you can type the name and it adds it. But for us, we have to do some of this stuff manually. So for one of those things, we need to create a structure, and that we need a web folder. I mean, you can call it anything, but we will call it web app. So we want everything that belongs to web goes there. Then we will have a web-inf and then index.jsp inside it, and that's where we will start our JSP files. So let's build this one, and then we will need the Tomcat, Apache, Jasper to show to render our text, everything on our servlet server. So let's do it. There are two ways we can do it. I mean, many ways, but one of the easiest two ways is you can always come to main. That's our main folder that we need. You can right click, create a new folder. Or if you are one of those guys who like to use terminal for everything, and I can do that, I will say copy this, split my session vertically. There we go. cd source, and then we need main. Actually, let me show you this one. We do have test, but we need main. So main, I'm gonna type again, Java, press tab again. It's gonna kind of automatically pick up most of them. So that's all the structure of the folder. I can type tree, which I have installed. The extension shows where the application is. Once we are here, but actually we need to go a couple of steps back. And that is, we want to be in main folder. And the reason for that is because we need to create a new folder where we want to have our web pages and view. In MVC, we want to have the view part, which will show in the browser for the users. So we want to make a a folder that will be called web app. And I can do like make space web app and then give it a new name, or I can just say it's created there, cd web app, And in here we will create the new one. We will call web-inf and cd web-inf touch index.jsp, which is our template engine for our Java file for the purpose of front end and retrieving backend data. So that's created. Let's come to our project and see we are in main, and then now we have, instead of 2 folders, we have the third one. So the JSP is pretty much blank, but if you use, for example, IntelliJ IDEA, or you use SpringToolSuite, you have some settings you can add it. It would auto-generate the template. You can save a template and it will give you all the tags. Since we want to go manual to do most of these things, let's get the tag. Let me close this part. We don't need that. So here's it. This is the JSP standard tag library. So for the first one to render this HTML page, we need the tag from tag library, the taglet that says prefixes C, and it's sun java.sun.com. Sun is the company that Oracle bought it, which created Java. So these are the guys who pretty much built Java, and then Oracle bought it. So not only that, they had like Flash and other applications too. So that line goes to the first part, and here's the HTML. We can do HTML here. The full thing you can copy it from another page, like just HTML library, or you can type it. Let me see, HTML page sample. How about saying HTML sample? Just to save some time instead of typing it. It's body, and this you can also save a template and open in Visual Studio Code. Welcome to Spring Boot. There we go. As of now, if I run it, still it's not gonna work because we do need the backend. Let's run our application. So it will be Maven Spring Boot dashboard run. Just want to have this running. So this is the div tool part, and it will keep running, restarting when you make changes. And that's when your table gets scrapped, when it does so, when it restarts and modifies the table. So that's running for now. We don't have any business with it. And since we want this to work and give us respond to us, so to render this page, we need to do 2 more things to make our life easy, and that's the application property again. The first one is called the spring.mvc.prefix, and I'll show you what it does, -inf. So this is the address. We tell it like, go find, when you find the web app folder, when I put an address, pick it up, just add this before whatever the route is there. And the other one is suffix. We want to put mvc.view. If it didn't autocomplete, it means there's a spelling error. Spring.mvc.view, and we need suffix this time. And I say like add a .jsp extension to all of the files. So keep that in mind. Let's now create a controller and then see why we did that. So let's come here and where you can see ideas. So here's the tricky part. We need a folder. But if you use a Spring Boot, it's usually called a package. And that package has to come under ideas or under your application folder. So let's use a terminal for that. We are in webinf cd Java. I'm doing this on purpose because I want you guys to see the path we take so you don't get confused. And cd ideas. We will go all the way down to see the file that's called like the, supposed to change that one, but anyway, the demo application.java. So once we are there, then we want to create a couple of folders, but for now I will do the controller. I will call it controllers, and inside controllers I need to create a Java file that I needed to route control the files. So control is pretty much like a traffic police officer standing at the intersection. When car comes, it makes a decision looking by their blinkers, and if it is left, right, it directs them to whatever route they want. And if he says, I want to make a U-turn, and there's a sign that says no U-turn, U-turn doesn't exist, then the officer says there's no U-turn. So that's pretty much the controller, like the easy concept. So we need to create a Java file, and in here it will be touch controller with capital because it's a Java class file, .java. And we can do it either here, or you can come to the controller and easily say new file, and it would just say like controller.java. Don't forget that extension here, because it's in Spring, the app itself takes care of it. You just choose the type in advance. And here's the other difference between SpringToolSuite and IntelliJ IDEA and this one, like for just out of the box settings. Then you need to put the package. If you don't put the package, your application wouldn't know where the file is coming from. So you tell them pretty much like this page that is open belongs to this category of this package, all these files. So it connects them and makes it available for other classes to access it. So now you have to define what type it is. It's public, and it is a class for this one. Public class, we call it, we shouldn't call it only controller because we will have an issue with it later. And that's because we have a Java annotation that will use it as controller. We don't want to have that conflict. So let's rename it. Or you can delete and create a new one. But I will call this idea controller. That's what it is. So now we change this one. This part doesn't matter. Yeah. Let's clean the whole thing. Probably it's easier to just delete and create a new one. So that's the controller, which is this folder, and this is the file. And we will say it's a public class idea controller. And just to make sure it works, we have to add the annotation. Let me put that in the text too. Brackets. So we're building the structure. Those are the things we did. Time to JSP. And it will be another good topic, Java annotations. I will add some link to it by the Google search. And for this one, we need the package that's called controller at controller. That's why it's annotation. It has an at right. So in the past, you had to do this manually, but luckily now you don't have to do it. That's why it makes it an ideal choice now to use Visual Studio Code compared to Visual Studio Code a year ago or 3 years ago. So that's the controller annotation. And let's create a route for this, which will be a git mapping. And we say whenever someone types, let's leave it at backslash, just /backslash. If that's typed, let me set a getter, which will be public, return a type of a string, get or show index page. say return. Here is the file name, which is index. So this is the part we had the suffix and prefix. In this part, let me share it, keep it open there. So if I don't add the prefix, then I have to here mention that this file exists in a folder .inf, or even I probably include the web app folder. And this file is type JSP. So that's you have to do for each single extra file that you will add in the future, that you have to have this path. In order to not repeat this, we will create this suffix and prefix, then this Spring Boot itself will add it whenever it returns a page, and it will add this one too. So that's the controller for basic, but still it's not gonna work. Refresh. Because we haven't added the dependencies for JSTL, the JSP tags, JSTL to read the page, and also Jasper to render it, and the Tomcat Jasper. Let's see it. These are the two extra dependencies we need. So I already have the plugin, but still I'm gonna do a Google search, JSTL POM XML file. Still dependency POM XML. Whatever way of Google searching works for you, so copy it automatically. And I have to put that in pom.xml. So XML is the kind of main configuration folder here. And you would add all those dependencies that we choose are here. So even if you just open this POM XML with like kind of basic settings and then add all these things after that, then you can do that. Like just whatever dependency you add here, pretty much it adds to Spring framework, and it's gonna keep working with it. Which what we used to do in the past, like we had to, when there wasn't the option like that, we would just download the these dependencies and copy and paste it. For example, this is MySQL connection that connects it, and the dev tools there, and the Spring Boot to start web. So all these things we had to add it manually. But now, luckily, when there are enough extensions available, so all you gotta do is just choose, click, and enter. It's gonna add to the framework. And now I'm gonna come all the way down where it says dependencies, but one line above that, and paste my code. And once I do that, when you do these in these IDEs now, it's gonna ask you, do you want automatic configuration? When you're a beginner, you always want to say yes. It may say always or update each time. So whatever is the question for positive, that's what you want to do. Because if you choose manually, you have to build the package each single time, and it's not gonna be fun. And you don't want to waste your time anyway on something that's already available, unless you want to build from ground the package and practice. I don't need the version for this one. So to make sure now these things work, I need one more thing, and that's called Tomcat Jasper Maven dependency. Let's go. I'm gonna go to the newest version. So there are different Jasper, couple different settings. You want this one, Apache Tomcat-Jasper. For this, you can keep the version. There are newest versions, and there we go. Let's organize it. And now we need to restart our application. Each time you type Java code in controller, data, model, you need to restart it to make sure it works and it applies. And especially if you make changes into model and you don't restart, it's not gonna work. So let's check it out. So I have an error right now. It's called webinf.index.jsp line 1. So let's see what we got there. Let's open index.jsp. Let me double check. What is wrong with line 1? Is there a difference? Let's compare. Core, that's fine. Don't see any error there. Let's restart. There we go. I don't know what, probably extra slash or backslash, something missing. Ah, it's funny that what it was. Let's make sure that when I put this link, so that's toggle prefix HTTP Java Suncom JSP JSTL. Oh, it is missing a code actually. This one. Let's double check. Don't want you guys to go on your own and then have the problem. So it needs to have this string code around it. Yeah, there we go. So that's in that link. Somehow, probably they have explained it, but anyway. And the other thing I do want to mention, when you go to just read this one, probably get the most recent one, because you don't need to add HTML4 when you have 5 and all those things. You want those old things. So just reading, just pick up the concept, that's it. That's all. You gotta just read it just to know what it is, which is just a standard library that you need these tags to retrieve data from Java, and we will take a look at it later. How to show data from database or from your backend to the front end as Jinja or other template engines. Timleaf, like Timleaf. For some reason, I usually think that's time I leave. I don't know why. So here we go, and our front end is now working. So that's a good news. But let's build the backend. See you in the next video.